we'll get started. I'd like to call to order the March 12th, 2018 meeting of the Highland Park Board of Education. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies in which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger, and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. Linda, can we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Here.
Ms. Cimarosti?
Here.
Ms. Coleman? Ms. Gowan?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Magaziner?
Here.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Here.
Ms. Pietrobono? Mr. Roslevich?
Here.
Be it resolved, pursuant to the Sunshine Act, NJSA 10-4-12 and 13, the Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss HIB reports, discipline, and personnel matters. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10-4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I please get a motion to convene to closed session?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, can I get a motion to reconvene to public session?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Flags over here to my right, my left.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Linda, do we have any communications on the agenda, any communications other than what's on the agenda? Sorry.
No, we don't.
Okay. All right, and for any board members, you've got this, the petition and letter that's referenced in the communications, it's both on the drive and you got it via email from Dr. Taylor, so we have that in multiple places. Okay, so that brings us to the much anticipated returning student representative report.
Hi everyone. So we don't have reports from the other schools tonight, unfortunately, but we have a pretty packed one from the high school. So we're both very, very excited to report that the Model UN and Congress team has returned from their week-long trip to Mexico City. Conference-wise, the team won first place overall best delegation, along with 21 individual awards. And more importantly, the trip was an amazing experience for all the students. We traveled to the pyramids, to the Frida Kahlo House, to the Leon Trotsky Museum, and we got to meet with so many amazing Mexican students and visit their schools, and it was just the greatest experience ever. And on behalf of the entire team, we're both officers of the club, and we would just like to thank the board and Dr. Taylor for giving us this opportunity to take that trip.
Just to add on, there was one other American school at the conference this year. Last year we were the only school. This year there was one other, and it's this like super rich private school from Chicago, and they came in second, and we came in first, and it was like a pretty exciting moment for public schools.
Take that, Betsy DeVos.
And then also, the high school is incredibly proud of the DECA team that excelled at their state competition 2 weeks ago. So 5 of the 6 manuals submitted will be moving on to nationals, and with the following ranking. So in first place, the Community Service Project of Alana Dakowitz, Kyle Hagan, and Larkin Zhu for organizing the HP Color Run. In second place, the Learn and Earn Project that's created by Eli Jacobs-Prez, Maria Rahi, and Wendy Uyang for organizing the school store, which has national gold recognition. Then third place for Entrepreneurship Promotion Project, Carolyn Hua, Pure Construction, Olivia Mayfryer for their help in expanding the GLOBE program at the high school. In fourth place for Creative Marketing Project, Gabriella Pulaski, Kaylee Wharton, and Mackenzie Volpert for organizing marketing campaigns for the drama department and the store. In fifth place for Financial Literacy, Kate Ashtonow, Claire Fabito, Alexandra Lee for teaching Indonesian immigrants financial literacy in the community. And finally, Alana Dakowitz was also awarded 2 scholarships for the Central Jersey and for the state of New Jersey. So the team has 32 students who will move on to nationals in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're wishing them the best of luck.
Wonderful.
Great.
Finally, just things are speeding up again in the high school. After so many field trips and double snow days last week, we are back to work and resuming lessons.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So that brings us to you. Dr.
I'm going to step up to the podium. So it's a wonderful opportunity tonight, since we have so many faculty out, to honor one of our own, which we're going to do in just a second. There's a program that I'm going to ask Dr. Nikosia to talk about in more detail called Women in STEM. It is something that Dr. Nikosia and many on her science team kicked off probably, half a year ago or so, and has just expanded exponentially. So Dr. Nikosia, our supervisor of STEM, would you please come to the podium?
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, colleagues, and community members. I'm so grateful to stand before you tonight to honor Jasmeet Anand, middle school science teacher and STEM advocate, as she's been volunteering her time to promote and support STEM education, in particular the Middle School Girls STEM Club. For those who don't know, about a year ago we started a Girls STEM Club, and the idea came out of a discussion I had with some young ladies who started to feel disenfranchised with science and math going into middle school. So I connected with Johnson & Johnson's Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Math, Manufacturing, and Design program. Their program is aimed at engaging girls through initiatives designed to spark interest in STEM at a young age. And their hope is to reach 1 million girls by 2020. We at Highland Park are going to do our part in helping them achieve their goal. The Middle School Girls STEM Club provides opportunities for students to experience different careers in STEM fields and to hear from women pursuing these careers. We've learned all about careers in computer programming, drug development, genetic counseling, and material engineering, and so much more. The first ice cream maker was created by a woman, and to celebrate, the Girls STEM Club made homemade ice cream in Ziploc bags. It was a mess, but we had a great time, and it was actually pretty delicious. Tackling such an initiative cannot be done alone. Ms. Anand has been instrumental in planning and preparing for all of our club meetings. She is constantly promoting the club and encouraging all students to attend. She volunteers her time to attend the meetings and participate with the students. She gets hands-on for sure. I would just like to share a quick story that highlights Ms. Anand's mentorship for our young ladies. Students in Ms. Anand's class have been working on designing a product recently as part of a startup that they had to do for a class project. A group of young ladies in class created their own soaps. In addition to actually making the soaps, they started their own company called Little Duck Soap Shop. They're $5 for the bar if anybody's interested. They use consumer feedback to improve their product and are now selling the soaps. Ms. Anand encouraged the students to attend our recent STEM club meeting to hear other female scientists discuss material engineering to give them some ideas for their products. Providing opportunities for students to engage in authentic STEM learning experiences takes time to plan and implement, not to mention a big shift in how we think about teaching and learning. In doing so, Ms. Anand has created ways for students to learn in the context of something that is meaningful to them. It is evident that Ms. Anand goes above and beyond to make STEM engaging and to provide mentorship to our female students. She inspires others, and for that, I am so proud to honor her tonight. Thank you.
May I say she's also wonderful with the male students.
And I would say that's one of the briefest reports I've given you in 3 years.
All right. Well, thank you. But a good one. Very good. So we'll move on to our committee reports. Michelle, could you get us started with curriculum and instruction?
Yes. Unfortunately, we were not able to meet because of the snowstorm. So the curriculum agenda is put together, but we, like I said, did not get to discuss any of it. I can just read through it, though. Item number 1 is the committee report. Number 2 is the resolution to approve field trip requests. Number 3 is a resolution to approve the HIB incident report for January. Number 4 is a resolution to approve Jennifer Knapp to present dynamic learning maps training on Monday, March 12th, today, 8 to 11:30. Number 5, resolution to approve the paraprofessional observation rubric. And number 6 is the resolution to approve the tech observation rubric. And that is my report.
Well, there you go. Another short and sweet report for this evening. And for anybody who's here or watching at home, just so you know what our process is, tonight is just our workshop meeting, so we don't actually approve anything tonight. Tonight is just our night to go through our agenda for the first time, then we're meeting again. Typically we meet the next week, but this month, because of how the budget season is being played out, which is different than normal because of us having a new governor, and we won't actually get our budget numbers until later this week. We won't meet again until 2 weeks. So nothing that's on the agenda tonight is being voted on tonight. It won't be voted on until 2 weeks from now. So this is all just us having a preliminary conversation, and this is actually quite unusual that one of our committees doesn't meet before the meeting. You'll see as we go through the rest of our reports, the rest of the committees typically meet. And things are, very discussed and fleshed out before we come to our voting meeting, which in this case will be again in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. I usually have a lot to report.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions for Michelle on anything that's on tonight's curriculum report?
I just want to follow up and make sure. With the field trip, I think is it Model UN or Model Congress that takes a field trip to New Brunswick?
UN.
Congress.
Sorry about that. I should have had that at my fingertips.
This trip is Congress, though.
Oh, okay. All right. It's quite a hefty financial price. Is there a lot of fundraising that's done? Are students given a clear way to get assistance if they need? Okay. That's not a mystery to people? Okay.
Yeah, the club has funds from various fundraisers, including our own conference, that subsidize any student that can't afford to go on their own.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? No. Okay, so we will move on to finance and facilities with Mark.
Darcy, thank you. So the Finance Committee met earlier today. We discussed the security measures that the school system might take going forward. And there is, Linda, there's a meeting of the Safety Committee tomorrow, yes? So we talked about various items. Just touch briefly on upgrading the vestibule areas in the school for making it more difficult to enter. We discussed possibly money for first floor windows so that there would be a resistant film on the windows. And the safety committee will be reviewing some of those. And we were discussing those in light of, where does the money come from? And we do have some capital money that could be spent. So we're waiting for the recommendations. We discussed some testing at the middle school gym for the materials and the rubber floor that was put in the gym, which may have some problems. And so some testing is going to go on, and we'll see what that results in. Hopefully those floors won't have to be replaced, but we're looking at it. We discussed the student enrollment. As we discussed at last month's, I think it was at the voting session, and we've been discussing over the months, the number of students has been in some slight decline. And from last month to this month, because we track, I think we have 6 additional students by count, in the district. But overall, it's 30 some odd students less than a year ago, which is somewhat surprising given all of the new building and students from some of the new complexes. But that's the case. And we're reviewing that and just want to go forward if enough building goes on to see that we're not hard pressed for space. And then we reviewed the budgeted and unbudgeted items in this year's budget to see where we stand against what was budgeted at this point in the year and at this point last year. and how much money we'll have left over to put into next year's budget, which, as I've said at every meeting for the past 4 months or 6 months, is going to be a very, very difficult year. We've had a lot of new special education students come into the district, and we have this 16% increase in medical insurance that the state informed us of, which pretty much takes the full 2% budget tax increase, a basic tax increase that we can give. So we're reviewing that. We're meeting on next Monday evening, the Finance Committee, along with Linda and Scott, to review the budget, and then perhaps again next Wednesday evening. And in both those cases, we'll have a budget. We'll have the state numbers. So that means we'll know what we really have to spend and what we'll cut, or what we might not have to cut. And if the budget is good enough, perhaps we don't cut anything. But it's a very difficult budget this year. Now, as for the agenda, the items 2 and 3 are our usual bill lists and travel and related expenses. Item 4 is a change of out-of-district placement for one of our students. And that seems like a lot of money, $64,000 plus travel. In fact, it's a savings of approximately it's approximately $7,000 savings, and a savings of approximately $20,000 in travel costs. So that's some money we're going to save against what was budgeted. Item 5 is a settlement agreement based upon where a child is going next year and the end of this year, and that may also have a slight savings in travel expense. Item 6 is replacement of wrestling mats, and item 7 is accepting the low bid. But Darcy just walked
She
out.
just stepped out for a moment.
Oh, no, I was going to give it to her. But Darcy had a question, Scott, on that, which was, wrestling season is over, yes?
Correct.
So would we not want to put that into next year's budget, or is this
We
just
can't fit it into next year's
We can't
budget,
fit
as
it.
tight
Okay,
as
so
it
we're going
is.
to use this year's money to buy it. Thank you.
I do want to let the community know that, and the board be reminded that I have been requiring all administrators to give me requisitions before they move to the purchase order process, which is the second to last step to cutting a check and buying something.
Yep.
So that I can vet whether the item is necessary or not. My intent is to recoup as much of that fund balance so that we could use it to offset the tax levy. This is an item that I scrutinized, talked to Mr. Gervin about, and I do feel we still need to move ahead on.
Okay, thank you. Items 8 and 9 are the costs for the internet access. We've taken a bid that's a few dollars more than the lowest bid. We're required to get the bids, but the bid we took was a bid that's being given by the contractor who we currently use, and this is the second year in a 3-year contract, and if we took the slightly lower bid, we'd have to pay back, in effect, we'd have to pay all of the second and third year from that contract. So we're saving money. Oh, and it's a savings of about $1,000 a month over this past year. So we're going to save $12,000, and we really pretty much have to stay with them as long as they're reasonably competitive, which they are. And then the last item is an acceptance of a grant from the Highland Park Education Foundation, which, again, the board thanks the HPEF. This is for the Bartle Book Room, which we've had discussions about, books in the classrooms and in the libraries. And this is wonderful. We're getting $1,158.25 to buy books. So again, thanks to the HPEF. And that's my report.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mark? No? Okay. So we'll move on to personnel and communications with Judy.
Okay. This is going to be a quick one. Also, we were not able to meet due to the snow. We were supposed to meet on the same day as curriculum, so that was canceled. So we are having our meeting rescheduled for March 20th because we did have some items to go over. So I'll just go through the agenda. It's pretty brief. Number 2 is a resolution to, to appoint our usual source for teacher subs. Number 3 is a resolution to approve a settlement agreement between the board and an employee. 4, resolution to approve payment for the following staff to be paid for 9th grade parent orientation night. So you'll see the list of the teachers on that list. 5 is some Schedule B appointments. 6 is the appointment of the doctoral level psychology practicum students that work in the teen center for 2018-19 school year. Number 7 is for home instructor, bedside tutor. Number 8 is paraprofessionals to provide after-school support for a special ed student. Number 9 is a stipend for a para. Number 10 is the transfer of a para from middle school to Irving School. And actually, believe it or not, that is it. It's a brief one.
It's a short committee report night. Does anybody have any questions for Judy? No?
Good thing.
Okay. Anne, policy.
Okay. We are meeting on the 27th. I think that's the 27th. Okay, excellent. We have 2 policies on the agenda, which I anticipate moving that we adopt at our next meeting. So this is, I think, our 3rd consideration of these policies. I'm not recommending any changes to policy 3281, inappropriate staff conduct, beyond what we discussed at the last meeting. 3283, Keith Presti had brought up in public comment some concerns about places where 3283, electronic communication, where that was not necessarily clear in guiding staff. Unfortunately, I didn't propose any changes in time for the agenda, but I am going to propose a couple changes of language, which I will try to circulate to policy before the next meeting. Should I read them in, or should we just read them in at the next one?
I think it's okay to just read them in at the next one.
Okay,
Up to you.
all right. Just to clarify, I'll give a little summary. One is just clarifying sort of what electronic communications mean. That includes not only emails, text messages, direct messages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and third-party apps, messaging apps. This is a policy that sort of lays out what teachers can and cannot, what appropriate electronic contact with students looks like. And we clarified what happens if the student does not have a district email address, as our younger students do not. The teacher, of course, is permitted to use the student's personal email address for work-related communications, and that is it.
Okay. So board members will look for those changes in the drive for our meeting in
And then
2 weeks.
you sent those to us by email 2 days ago.
Oh, that's right. I did get into the policy
Yeah, 'cause
committee.
I
That's
have
right.
it here.
Yeah, it didn't quite make it to the
Oh, it didn't make it to
the
everyone.
public materials.
That's
Yeah, I was late.
Okay.
So we got it.
So everybody
we'll
give me
have that
feedback.
back.
We'll have that well in advance of voting on it next
Yep.
time. Okay. Does anybody else have any input for Anne? No? All right. Have anything for us this evening, Monique?
Well, yeah, I was going to say Equity and Excellence is probably the only committee that meets like on a bi-monthly plan, so we may consider making it a little more frequent.
Sure.
So nothing to report now. We'll probably be meeting in April.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so that will move us on to public comment. So Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation. It is reserved this time for your comments. If anybody would like to make public comment, you could come up to the podium. There's a form there. If you could give us your name and address, we would appreciate it for the board secretary.
So I'm Mr. Oh, is this on? Oh.
It's on and off now.
I'm breaking things already. So I'm Chris Broadfoot, for those that don't know. I teach at the high school. I just have a statement, I guess, that we worked on today, so I'll read it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Last week, a number of incidents in the high school highlighted a serious set of concerns about discipline and security in our building that has troubled our students and staff. As of tomorrow, as was mentioned earlier, a number of teachers will be serving on the security committee, and we hope our conversations will be productive. That being said, the high school faculty had our own meetings on Friday and Monday, and want to make clear to all of you that this is a major priority for us and a topic on all of our minds. We are concerned about the implementation of restorative practices and consistent discipline. We are concerned about the lack of communication between administration and staff, and especially because of recent events, we are concerned about security procedures and infrastructure in our building. We believe that action needs to be taken immediately. We ask for a meeting between Dr. Taylor and our members and request that thoughtful and deliberate changes be made to our building to keep all of us, especially our community's children, safe. The show of faculty here tonight demonstrates our support for this statement.
So, I'm sorry, are you continuing that, or do you want us to respond to you, or are multiple folks going to be commenting? I just want to know, I don't, you're separate. Okay. So is some of the, like a subset of the staff that has met to discuss this will be participating in the meeting tomorrow so that we'll get a sense, or
Yes.
you're asking for something in addition to that meeting?
That's true. I think that one of the ideas that came up today was a sort of meeting between the high school faculty and Dr. Taylor to discuss. We've had something like that before, but I think another reassurance would probably be good. But no, we do recognize that we are going to have some people on that we haven't had before. So that's...
Okay, but you are asking for something in
Yes,
addition
yeah,
to
yeah.
that. So you'll have folks representing the concerns that were discussed on Friday and Monday
Right.
at tomorrow's meeting, but in addition to that, the high school staff would like to have a meeting with
Right.
central office administration to discuss your concerns. Got it, thank you. And of course, if you're a teacher, you can just say you're a teacher. You don't have to.
Susan Doozy, here speaking on behalf of HPA, Second Vice President. Here in Highland Park, we are well known as a community that's on the forefront of protections of gender equality and activism for our undocumented families. We are also well known for our successes in AP scores and outstanding achievements in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. In order to maintain these achievements and advancements of others, we must ensure that there's a safe learning environment for every single student and staff member. Without the feeling of security in place, where we spend the majority of our waking hours, the educational process suffers. Events like Manchester and Las Vegas have made us all aware that even concert venues are now vulnerable places. Sandy Hook and most recently Parkland have left our students, educators, parents, and the nation worried about how safe we are each day when we are supposed to be focused on giving and receiving an education. In the high school, we have admirable students who are turning their concern into advocacy. This past Friday, almost a month since Parkland, the high school community had come together, and Parkland was briefly touched upon in the context of the March 14th demonstration. However, some staff members remain confused on how the messaging, that we should be sharing and relaying to our students about their safety in Highland Park. As if the events nationally aren't enough, in the high school we are currently experiencing incidents of school violence and out-of-control behavioral issues. There have been a visible occurrence of unmanageable student behavior, a lack of student accountability, and empathy towards peers and staff. There have been physical fights, with one of the most severe in all of my 16 years here that I've been aware of to have occurred this past Friday. 10 staff members, including myself from the middle and high school, volunteered to receive training on restorative practices. We walked away from the training with a sense of excitement and hope. Yet we also knew that the success of restorative practices was hinged on the cohesive implementation of this initiative. We expressed it so much in our sessions with our trainer, Tanya. She spoke to this board at a meeting, and our numerous parking lot concerns were given. We have received little feedback or response to our questions. There have been many misunderstandings when it comes to restorative practices and how best to properly implement them into the discipline system. Training needs to happen at all levels. We're looking forward to the best practice of everyone on our staff being fully and properly trained and being IIRP certified. Which, just so you know, that the 10 of us were trained, we can do that. We just, unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet that way. We started out this year with an inspirational guest speaker and left us with his mantra of being all in as we picked up our specialized poker chips. We must be given clear and timely supports to see this mantra through. Many of us feel that our community is fractured, and because of the concerns I spoke of. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and look forward to working with you on a comprehensive and cohesive plan so that we can be all in together.
Thank you so much. And I'm so, I feel, hard to say. I'm so sorry for the stress that everybody is under in the last month. I think schools across the country are feeling that stress. I think it's impossible not to. And I'm also sorry to hear that the staff feels that the implementation needs to be improved, but I am heartened to hear the commitment to continuing that process, that the staff isn't wanting to, throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater and say this isn't working, we need to do something else. That I think the board and the administration, and it sounds like the teachers, agree that we're moving in a positive direction, but we've got some work to do to get there. So that's going to be one of my takeaways from what you've shared with us tonight as well. Okay. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ana Perez, 344 Becker Street, and I'm here to speak about the walkout that's scheduled for Wednesday. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the meeting, so maybe there was some discussion of it. I was particularly interested in hearing the students' perspective. The last thing I want to do is speak for students. I would like to hear from students, given a chance. I've heard from some students, my boy and others of his age. I also brought to the school asking what I brought, I think, to the two principals and with the superintendent attached, and got very nice message almost immediately. And attached was the letter from the high school that was sent to high school parents, and also the letter from the middle school was referenced. I never received the letter from the middle school. That might be entirely my fault, but I want to alert you that there's some problems with communications that get lost, and I think when one particular communication is of importance, we should make sure that it gets to people. So again, I don't know if it's me. I received Genesis and paperless communications, not this one. I know it existed because it was referenced in other communications. Anyway, so the two letters written by the two principals were informative, authoritative, well-meaning, but they were also very patronizing, both of them. I'll just read you a passage from the high school letter. Says the school district says that students approach building principals wanting to express their angst, frustration, and sadness. That's a quote. Wanting to express their angst, frustration, and sadness. I wasn't there. I don't know what the students said. To me, this protest is a political protest. I don't think it should be transformed into, some something else, and I don't think the school should orchestrate what students want to express. I think students approach the school asking for the possibility of having an event and reclaiming some agency. I don't think we should, take away that agency from them by telling them what they should be expressing at that point. The middle school letter has a lot of issues. The first is that students are not encouraged to participate in the protest. They will have another alternative event at 12:45, which is not the time the national protest takes place. It's due to safety concerns, which I respect, and I understand safety. We will talk about safety, so that's number one issue, and I don't know, I'm not a building administrator, I don't know what those issues are. It would be nice when we reference safety that we give some details, because otherwise safety can become an excuse for lots of inappropriate behavior and authoritative behavior. We know that all too well in the national scene. So the major problem, I think, in the letter, other than the fact that students are not encouraged, they are able to participate. They can choose to participate in so middle school students, which is our case, are encouraged, I'll just read it because I'm not making sense. Basically, parents have to sign them out. That's what the letter
That was actually changed, though.
Oh, you changed that?
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
cool.
changed.
Okay, so that was my main ask. You changed it today?
I don't know whether it was today or Friday, but it was changed, yeah.
We sent a follow-up email this morning with a letter around 9 a.m., 9:30, that indicates we have supervision for the students, so anyone who wants to participate in the high school walkout will be supervised. No need for people to sign kids out. Okay. We just ask that as a courtesy, we get a heads up, so we have a sense of how many students may walk out with the high school kids.
Well, that's good. That's good policy, because I was very concerned of, kind of discrimination against parents who are not able to physically sign out students, which is what the letter said. I know that the letter said, we ask, however, that you come into the middle school and sign your child out and then bring him or her to the tracks. That's what the letter said. On the loudspeakers, students were told that a note from the parents.
I believe it's as simple as a call. Is that what you're asking, what it takes for a middle school child to participate?
Yeah, what does it take to...
Oh, how about I pull up the letter that she sent while you continue, and I'll tell you exactly what she stated.
And I don't want to put the students on the spot, but can you speak to, I know, Julia, you've kind of been involved in this from the beginning in terms of planning, and do you feel like students have been given voice and agency in this process, or?
I can't speak for the middle school at all, because I have no coordination in that regard at all. I know that in the high school, I think students are actually encouraged to participate. I know that one of the main complaints of people involved in the protest has been that we have too much administrative support.
It's hard to rebel when you guys let us do it. God.
So, well, and there's like a lot to get into there, but I do think that students in the high school feel like absolutely encouraged to participate, or at least I don't think anybody feels like the administration is posing any barrier. In terms of the middle school, I can't say any specifics because I don't even know the details of the
But do you feel like you're being limited in terms of how you can participate, or what concerns you can express, or whether you have to keep your concerns limited to?
I don't think there's any concern about what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to express in that regard. I know that originally we'd wanted to have it on the front lawn. It's now been changed to the turf for various reasons. But I also know that as a group, we're pretty committed to the idea that we're not protesting Mr. Lassiter or the high school staff or the Board of Ed, or, we know that that the teachers and the administration are as affected as we are, if not more. And that obviously, the Board of Ed is behind us on this. So I don't think there's any disagreement about that. If anything, the concern is really that the location was an issue about having to kind of force to be moved to the turf instead of where we'd originally planned, and then also that there's almost too much administrative involvement.
Okay.
Can I just make a short comment? You mentioned there's no coordination with middle school students. I mean, they're part of this nation, right? I'm concerned about when a middle school student has an issue, whatever issue, it came up now, but who do they talk to? You know, they're legitimately kind of, it might be their first political, you know, adventure.
Anna, just make sure you use the microphone.
Oh, yeah,
so
sorry.
Everybody at home.
No,
can hear you.
I just want to suggest there's some type of representation of middle schoolers and more interface with high schoolers. I mean, you share a physical space, and it's a time that's political by nature. We can, I mean, even like, why should Irving students not be concerned by this? It's a national situation. I'm not encouraging anybody to walk out, but maybe, you know, at that time a pause could be made. I mean, why are they excluded from this conversation?
And there's also, I mean, remember, there's, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, there are multiple days
Yes.
where activities are happening. And eventually, initially, the students were talking about April 20th, and then it got, you know, either we're going to do both, or maybe this has been moved for the, so, I mean, I think on April 20th, there's,
Yes.
I think the idea is there'll be more of a district-wide
Yes.
involvement. So I don't think the administration, either central or any of the building administrators, are trying to squelch, I mean, my sense anyway, any of the children in any of the buildings. If anything, you know, I personally have been looking at, you know, different ways that elementary school students and different elementary schools around the country have, you know, have encouraged, you know, younger students to participate as well. But, I mean, as I think both of the building administrators mentioned in their letters, we also have to be, you know, aware of parents who don't want their children to participate in this. So, you know, there's a lot of things to consider. You know, we have to make accommodations for all kinds of parents and all kinds of students, and how they're going to respond to situations like this. So,
There was an article in the Home News a couple days ago, which I was quoted about my support for the effort. But what I found, what I appreciated about what was written in the article is that we were singled out as being one of the few schools in the county that's being so supportive, and it actually has an organized, structured plan thanks to the students, particularly Julia and Avery Haley Locke, who organized the 17 speakers. I do want to read a passage from the second middle school letter that went out. In the second paragraph, it states, I, Mrs. Osemier, have been able to secure middle school staff supervision for them, the kids, so parents do not need to come in and sign out their children if they allow them to participate in the high school event. However, I do ask that you let the main office know of your child's intent to participate in the high school walkout. They'll be working out with their walkout, so that we may plan accordingly. As I pointed out, we just want to know the numbers of kids we'll be talking about. This is a student-led, student-organized event. If kids come to us, we'll respond appropriately. We did have some 8th graders who want to participate in the high school walkout, which is why we've included that passage, this allowance. We didn't have other students necessarily approach us. The middle school, I think the middle school building leaders and some of the faculty took it upon themselves to organize that activity, because as far as I know, there wasn't a lot of middle school student voice outside of the 8th graders for this effort. So I hope that clarifies.
Well, voices are sometimes not heard. That's all I want to say, that there's ways to, you know, there's ways to encourage agency, and institutionalizing an event is good because it's safer, but it also has drawbacks, and the main drawback is it takes agency from the organizers. That's all I'm saying. So we, you know, one thing is emotional support, and the other is, you know, a protest. It's not the same thing. I think the school should, that's their job, right? But also make sure that everybody has the possibility of participating, not participating, but, you know, fully engaging, and not being afraid to reach out and to, you know, to discuss issues with, that's why I was suggesting some type of representation. It would be good if high schoolers and middle schools could, you know, come together around these, you know, activism-related issues, clubs, and maybe have some guidelines about how to organize things. Just an idea for the future. Sorry, I took a lot of time.
thank you.
I just wanted to add something, because I have a middle schooler the same age as Anna's, that when I asked, you know, maybe you should go speak to your student representative, like student council, my student did not know that we had a student council, if there even, if that, you know, institution even existed. So I think that I understand the same thing coming from my middle schooler, is that there's not a lot of organization from the students, and they were kind of waiting for something to come down to tell them when was appropriate to, voice their concerns. And so I guess in retrospect, I wish maybe the high schoolers could have helped the middle schoolers through that process a little bit more. It's wonderful if we do it in the future, though. It's an opportunity. And I know that the middle schoolers were disappointed that they couldn't do it at the same time as the high schoolers. I think they're all feeling that they want to do
I
it
think
as
we have to be careful to say some of the middle schoolers. I mean, I
Oh.
think some are probably blissfully unaware that anything's going on.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just speaking from
want-
what I'm hearing from
Yeah.
friends and neighbors, But yeah, there was a sense that they wanted to be part of the national walkout at the same time as everyone else. So it didn't sound like there was a whole lot of conversation between the organizers and the students in the middle school. That's all.
Okay, thanks. Is there any other public comment this evening?
I didn't prepare anything, so I'm on the fly. And I haven't been here in a lot of years. Hopefully I won't offend my union members, my coworkers, my board, or my superintendent. I am sad. I'm here because I'm sad. I said to Nicole Marioni the other day that this is the first year where I'm not having a great year because I feel it's a tale of two schools. We have wonderful students. These students, I'm perky and happy to help them every day, but there's another school going on here, and I just want the board to understand the violence and the disrespectfulness that I have seen this year. I raised Rachel here. I was born and raised here, and I love it here. But this has got to end. It's just sad. The way kids speak to us. Not all kids. They're wonderful students. There is a group, and probably in every grade and in every school, but I've never seen it this bad. Here. This is my home. I pay taxes. You pay taxes. I see them at the grocery store. I love seeing them at the park. And then I come here and I'm cringing in the morning. I've never felt that. So I just wanted you to know, please help them. Hear them. It is, you're not seeing a lot of other things that are going on. And I just want you to know, it's not only the AP and the grade, and that is all great, but there is something else. We have some kids that are troubled and need to be helped. And I know you all know that.
Yeah, but I don't want to give the impression that the board doesn't.
Of course not.
I just don't want to give the impression that the board doesn't have mechanisms for seeing this, because we do. I mean, if you look at any of our closed session agendas, it's all about HIB, which is harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and discipline. So we get regular reports. We've created structures so that we get actually a much clearer picture than folks might think that we get of what's going on. And we see the same thing. And we were, discussing it just a little while ago in closed session. We can see that things, for whatever reason, seem to be ramping up, and we can see that disrespect, and we can see that language, and we can see the physical nature of some of the conflicts that are going on. So please be reassured that this is not going over anyone's head or going unnoticed. And the board is working as diligently as we can with the administration to try to figure out ways to deal with this, because we don't want anybody to feel like that walking into a building in the morning.
I just have never felt like this.
Yeah, and
I love
can
it here.
imagine, and I think
It's hard. It's hard to see my coworkers in pain every day and frustrated, and students too.
Yeah, and I mean, and
As
having,
I'm sure you all are too, that this is where your children go to school, and it's just sad right now.
yeah, it's of
So
great
I'm sorry.
concern, and I think, I think students are under stress just like adults are under stress, and those stresses play out in many different ways. And like I said to Ms. Doozy, I'm so reassured to hear you say that that where this makes us go is not, let's just throw this all out and expel these kids and throw them out of the district, because we've seen in other incidences around the country, that doesn't solve the problem. You expel a kid can come back. So we have to find ways of, not only helping these students, but of helping them find ways to connect to to connect to the school community. That's the only thing that's going to stop this kind of either physical or verbal or whatever kind of violence it is that's happening. So I think we are headed in the right direction. I think it's going to take us some time to get there.
Because I'm all on board restorative and I'm all on board on discipline. Somehow it just needs to come together in a better way than that's happening now.
Right.
Because I feel like I did my job raising my child, and this school needs to do our job of raising other. That's all. So I'm sorry, I'm an emotional. It's just what it is. I'm a mom.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm not sure if we're on the agenda. Somehow I saw, this is my first time attending the meeting.
It's
so I'm
okay,
not
it's
sure.
public comment, so you can, if you could, you'll see there's a piece of paper there. You can just put your name and address for the board secretary so that she can record it in the minutes for the meeting, and then you can make your public comment. I'm sorry. Yeah, and please state your name and address also for the record, please.
I guess board members and Dr. Tyler. Yes, okay. Board members and Dr. Tyler.
And don't be nervous, we're all very
Okay.
nice and friendly.
I guess I was designated to represent our little group. So we collected these signatures, and we are part of Concerned Parents.
Oh, I'm sorry, could you say your name and address for the record?
Oh, sure. My name is Paulina Bess, and I'm at 43 Lambiance Court.
Thank you very much.
So we written this letter and collected signatures. We are heard that Highland Park Middle School is again planning to detract the advanced math program, and for the middle school, and we're very concerned. And as parents, we have serious reservations about this plan, and we discussed it last year. We met with our principal in middle school, and we are concerned that by aggregating students of all levels in one single class, the quality of the instruction will suffer and be compromised, and that the math education of the student of all levels will suffer as a result. So if, for example, we have kids of all levels in one class, so instead of 43 minutes of instructions for each of the levels, we'll have only 14 minutes for levels in one class, and that's we think that's not fair. And currently I guess some students, well, my child in the class that he's in an advanced class, and there is a group of students that's, I guess, at a high level, and there's a small group of students that's at a high level, and bigger group with a lower level, and the teacher, it's a lot of stress on the teacher, I understand, and I spoke to her, and I was just asking for extra assignment for the group that's a little bit higher, and she is unable to do it because there's a lot of questions, and she's just struggling because it's just too much on her, which I understand. So we're thinking that as it stands, that the math teaching right now, like in the most schools of the countries, are very stretched, and we heard stories of some of the students, as I said, struggling to keep up, while the other ones are finding class too easy and boring. So we are wondering if the school has come up with an actionable plan to augment the teachers' monitoring and teaching capabilities to plan to detract the advanced math program is likely to exacerbate, not alleviate this problem. And as we know, the future of the U.S. economy, and that is of our children to a large degree, depends on the quality of STEM education our children receive today. As such, we believe that the higher priority and more resources needed to be committed to STEM education and not less. And furthermore, we believe that that improvement in STEM education need not to be accompanied by a dramatic increase in costs, for there is already a free, low-cost resources like Khan Academy, or AOPS student tutors, and Rutgers students, and aides, and etc., that can augment the capabilities of the teacher and individualize the instructions of the student. But at this point, it doesn't appear that the advanced math student will have access to the necessary computer or other resources that will allow them a measure of the individualized instructions in a detracted math program. So finally, an important constituent was never consulted regarding this matter, and the advanced math students themselves. Our informal survey indicates that the students themselves also believe that the quality of their math education will be degraded by the detraction. For the above reasons, we request a special hearing to further discuss and find a solution to meet the educational needs of our students of Highland Park School. So this letter, I guess, was emailed to Dr. Tyler, so you guys have it.
Yes, we all do. The board members received it both via email, and we have it online in a special folder where we keep all our agenda items. So the board does have access to that. And I will let you know that detracking is something that the board feels very strongly about moving forward, but it's not something that we're trying to do in any sort of surreptitious or without input. This is something that we've been talking about for quite some time, and that we've been working with the administration to do very slowly and systematically. And we do plan on having multiple forums, probably some smaller, some larger, over the next year to discuss this issue, both at the middle school and high school level. And I don't know if you got a chance to see our last board meeting online, but if you go to the board's website, on the very front page of the website are the board videos. And we had a presentation actually at the last board meeting from the high school principal, Mr. Lassiter, about one particular class that was detracked last year, that we kind of detracked one class in the U.S. History Honors. So, I mean, I think when people hear detract, they think you just throw all the kids in one room and, everybody gets the same thing. That's not our intention at all. So with this one particular class, there's still a U.S. History Honors AP, and then there's a U.S. History Honors. So that U.S. History Honors, within that class, there's also an honors option. So within that one class, we've made those classes heterogeneous groupings, but the students also have the ability to opt for additional work. And if you watch that meeting, I think you'll be, very pleasantly surprised. We were all very pleasantly surprised. We did this with this one class so that we could get teacher feedback, student feedback. All the feedback overwhelmingly was very positive. And it got more, it seemed that the higher level students didn't feel like their education suffered for it, and some of the students who typically would have been in a less rigorous class, some of them actually took a leap to move up. That's what the board's and the administration's goal is to help some of the students who are at a lower level and become disaffected to have more agency and have more of an ability to challenge themselves in a safe environment. We understand that supports need to be put in place for that. We would never move forward with any initiative without supports in place so that students who are struggling can get additional work. And from the conversations that Dr. Taylor and I have had, and we'll continue to have if we move forward with anything in terms of the middle school, we would never take away any upper track that would stop a student from getting as high as they potentially could in math. That is never ever our intention to slow down anyone's advancement. But what our intention is to make sure that the students that historically in this district have been stuck in a low track and unable to move out of that track, that those students are no longer stuck. This is part of this whole problem that we see. I mean, we can't discuss detracking and the violence that we see in our schools without looking at all these things hand in hand. So we have to, I think, I speak for the board, do something so that these students who have been stuck in these lower tracks in our district and districts across, this is not specific to us, this happens in many places around the country, particularly districts like ours that are very diverse.
No, I understand, but my concern is for the kids that do well.
Absolutely,
So
and ours are as well.
for them, because right now what I'm seeing, my child is in 7th grade, what's happening there, it's just unacceptable, unfortunately.
So as we move forward with having these conversations, we would certainly, really appreciate your input, and we'll make sure we now have your name and contact information. We'll make sure that Dr.
My phone number here.
I mean, whatever information you can give us there, so Dr. Taylor can reach out to you. And as we move forward having these conversations, we would certainly include you in those conversations.
Yeah, that's my concern. But if you are to do this, do you think you're going to be doing it for the 8th grade, if our kids are in the 7th, or you're going to do it another, how long is that discussion is going to take? I'm just an approximate time frame.
Can you
have?
I can't, it's hard for me to tell. I mean, it was the strategic plan's intention to actually implement a new model, a redesign, starting next school year. We're a little behind in our research. We've been doing research for 2 years now. I'm working closely with Dr. Chu, Yan Chu, who's maybe 7th grade, you said?
She teaches in 6th grade.
Okay, so she has been working closely with me, Dr. Nicosia, who was here earlier, Mrs. Osemier. We're looking at other school models. We have a folder, a shared folder in our Google Drive, full of resources that we've been compiling for 2 years. We're still parsing through it. The intention has been to implement next year. I don't know if we're on that same timetable yet. But obviously, I'll echo what the board president pointed out. We'll pull you into that conversation.
Okay, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
I think, could I just jump in on that one? Because we have been, even with the 11th grade honors, the 11th grade history, when we originally discussed it, there was not an honors option. And through our discussions and back and forth with faculty and staff, with students and parents, and amongst ourselves, with administration, I think we got to a place that turned out to be very successful as a model. Now, whether that is the kind of thing that we can also translate into math, I think that's the question, because math is different. I believe math is different, as possibly the sciences as well, as opposed to the humanities and the arts. So I think that's what that's what we are trying to learn. That's what we are reading about, trying to use best practices, and we'll see where that heads. Whether that's this coming year or when we actually wind up with our plan.
And that was something that Dr. Taylor and I have already discussed, because we talked about this just like a week or so ago when we got the petition and we started having some preliminary conversations about it. And I agreed with what Dr. Taylor had said, was that we wouldn't necessarily just level everything out. You would still, there are going to be kids moving into middle school who already know that like math is their thing, and that math isn't going to be the thing for everyone. So it may look something very like what we've done with that U.S. History honors class, where you've got those kids who are already like, yep, I'm going for it, and I want to be in that top level that's going to get me through to calculus, whatever. But then for the rest of the students, that's where we have our heterogeneous groupings, where we're not doing a split of all the rest of the kids. So if your student already knows I'm going to be a doctor or a scientist or whatever, and I need all the math education I can get, they can be in some higher level class that's going to lead them to a different place. But for other students who are just like, I got to take a math class, those are the kids that would all be together, and we're not going to separate those kids out by level, because I always want to reassure everyone, our goal is never to slow down anyone's pacing. Our goal is, and our goal is to try to advance pacing for students who might not otherwise know that they can do it. Do you know what I mean? So, yep. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Sclafani. I teach here at the high school. I actually just wanted to, after hearing Julia talk a little bit, I want to give you a ton of credit, and you are very much on the money. And you guys need to understand this. I've been in this school for 17 years, absolutely love every day I've worked here. All right, I'm a former police officer. But what's happening right now this year is very, very disturbing to me. All right, we have some outstanding kids that are in the school. Matter of fact, most of them are. 2 of them right there. All right? But we have a small amount, and it's a small amount, but a small amount sometimes can amplify everything that's happening. Okay? I don't know if you know this year, but I had to take out an order of protection on a kid. All right? And that's horrible. It's the last thing I wanted to do. All right? But I absolutely felt threatened by this kid. And then what happened Friday, all right, look, things happen in schools sometimes. Because overall, the direction, I think, and I think you hit it on the head, Darcy, before, I think we are going in a good direction in certain things. But I think some kids that are in here right now are getting away literally with murder. All right? Where what happens here is people have no respect for each other, for the faculty, and like I said, it's a small group, and I mean 7 or 8 kids. But I have to, after hearing Julia get up here, I'm not just going to sit there. I'm going to go to bat for her because she absolutely deserves to hear that. And you know what? You're just being honest, and I'm about honesty. And I think it's just something that you really got to look at. And with this meeting for tomorrow, I didn't even know about it, but Dr. Taylor, I would absolutely love being on that committee. All right, and I hope that you'll let me be on it, okay? But I would definitely like to be on it, because with security, I have a background in it, and I would love to be able to sit on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment this evening? Mr. Presti? Aren't you so glad you have more people here with you tonight?
So actually, I want to start by saying that it's so nice to see so many of the faculty and staff here this evening.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your line.
You can join, that's all right. You can join me anytime, and I think it's very important for, on a regular basis to hear, for you to see the board to see us.
Absolutely.
So I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you for everybody who did come out this evening. I think it's also really wonderful for those of you who were able to share your concerns with the board. I think it's important for them to hear directly from you. What I would like to share first is I was able to go to a labor management collaborative. I know. Well, Darcy would have been there, but and Dr. Taylor also. But a wonderful program that's out of Rutgers, where lots of school districts, the unions, and the management coming together and being collaborative, working on things. And I think what I would like to share that I gleaned from that, well, one is that I really want to do it, and I think we're kind of on the same page with that. So we should move ahead with that. But also the research that's been done between the districts that have a good labor management relationship shows, one, higher student achievement, and also lower faculty turnover, which I think are two really great important things. And I think we do a very good job here already, being collaborative and working together. Some of the things that were said, that having standing meetings, Dr. Taylor and I have standing meetings. I've met with Darcy on occasions, with Mark when we had a great negotiations process. So, and I think thinking about everything that's been going on in the country and here in this district, I think that is one of the cornerstones, I think, to solving a lot of these problems. And I think and I would also like to say, in speaking to a lot of the faculty, these concerns are not isolated to the high school by any means. Every school has their own concerns that need to be brought forward, and I think it's very I think it's very good that we are adding classroom teachers to the Security and Safety Committee, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion tomorrow. And clear your schedules, because I feel like we're going to be there for a while. But but I think also what people just want you to know is that we're the ones on the ground every day in the classrooms dealing with this situation, while at the same time other people are trying to work out how we're going to fix it. So in the meantime, we come to school every day and we have concerns, and I can tell you that even from this showing, if this many staff members are concerned and stressed, you can imagine how the students feel. And the number one thing that everybody needs is shelter and security, and to feel safe. And if you don't have that, there's no learning happening. So I think this is the time to really roll up the sleeves and get down to it. And we're only going to do that from working together. So let's see if there's anything else I wanted to say. And I wanted to also say, from Susan Doozy's thing, these people wouldn't be here if they weren't committed to it. We love this place. We don't do this because we get paid a lot. We're here because we really value the system and working for the students every day. And we want to continue to do that. I think that's really all. Thank you everybody for coming out, and I think the more you can come out, the better. And thank you to every member of the board for listening to us and being willing to work with us on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, and I mean, just to reiterate what Keith said, I already self-chastised myself with Keith via email for missing that meeting. I was so angry and annoyed at myself when I realized that I had not put that date on my calendar and scheduled myself properly. I seriously need a secretary. I'm wearing way too many hats. But even before we had been approached by, we were approached by Rutgers to participate in that program?
An email from Rutgers.
Yeah, I think we were probably an anomaly in that we had already started meeting, the three of us together, to have exactly that kind of collaboration. And of course, it's going to be, we can only strengthen that by learning from other districts who are starting to work. But in a lot of districts, that's a huge thing, to get your board president and your union president and your superintendent to sit down in a room and have a civil conversation, and we're already there, so I think we're starting from this really strong place where we can tackle issues like this, right? We can tackle the issues around safety and security in the buildings. We can tackle issues around detracking, and hopefully get to a place where, we can collaborate. Everyone might not get exactly what they want, but you get to a place where everybody can at least feel that they've come to the table and we've collaborated and we've ended up somewhere where we're moving in a good direction. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm grateful that, you come every meeting or someone from the union comes every meeting, because maintaining that dialogue is so important, so that we're not doing things in isolation. You guys aren't doing anything doing stuff in isolation, and the administration isn't doing stuff in isolation, that we're all keeping each other, informed and in the loop. So I reiterate what Keith said. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight and letting us know how you feel, and for supporting the work that the board and the administration is trying to do in terms of restorative practices, because I think that is going to be, hopefully as we move forward, an important step to solving some of these issues. Anybody else want to come to the podium? No? Okay, so seeing no additional public comment, if anybody wants to skedaddle now, please feel free. We will not be offended in any way, shape, or form. We'll even give you a couple minutes to recess. Okay.
It is lonely without an audience. It's better.
Much better.
It is energizing.
Okay, Scott, if you're okay, I'm gonna move on. You can stay for a minute, but, because we really don't really have much else to do for the rest of our meeting. For my president's report, I was going to talk about the days of action, but I think we've pretty well hashed that out. I don't think you guys need me to talk about that, unless any board members have any questions about what the activities are, or what the Dr. Taylor did. I spoke with him earlier today, and he did say that if any of us want to attend as board members, we can do that. So we would meet
to your point,
in the...
Where do we
to
go?
your point, though, about how we're so behind it as the administration,
Right.
staff. I mean, it is true, because I remember, protests where it was just the students, and we were very much alone, and we came out of it with great memories. But I think for everybody to be on the same side of this is a great thing. So, yeah.
Where do we go if we're board members are interested in having any part of this, in this?
So this is a discussion that Darcy and I had at the end of the day. I'm all for it. It's going to happen. I'll inform the principals that this will happen as well. And we're not having any adults outside of school personnel.
That's what I thought, yeah.
But I consider you all school personnel, so I think it's appropriate for you to be there. You're affiliated with the school district in a direct manner. There'll be a reporter from the Home News there as well. She's going to do a story on the event. So I think it's perfectly acceptable for the board to be present.
Let's ask one of the planners of the event what she thinks.
No, we didn't. Where does one report if a board member?
Wait, hold. I'm going to let...
Wait.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of different views within the group that's organizing it. Personally, I'm much more like, hey, I'm happy to sit down and work with Mr. Lassiter. I'm happy to have administrative support because, one, we haven't had a ton of time to plan this, especially considering that we were away and stuff, and so it's actually been really helpful in a certain way to have administrative support. And I also think that that actually more than the students, administration and faculty are affected by this because they actually spend more time in schools, and there's a discussion that they would somehow be responsible for. I can't get into all that. So personally, I don't have a problem with that. I know that it's been a serious concern in terms of publicizing it as something beyond the students in terms of safety, but as Dr. Taylor said, if the board members are considered part of school personnel, then I guess I don't really see the issue with that. So I don't know. We're not going to invite non-students to speak at the event. But in terms of observing or supporting by just being there, I welcome that. I think most of the student people involved would as well.
We wouldn't talk or anything.
No.
In fact, I'm going to be I'll be leading this group. There'll be one other person with me. I have an intern.
Okay.
Who happens to be shadowing me that day, so she's going to join us. But I envision us somewhere on the sidelines, just peering in.
Bring your snow boots. They haven't shoveled the track.
I saw that today, actually. And we're getting more tonight, right? I'm just waiting for it out the window.
But thank you for being so cooperative. I didn't even think to ask the student body because I thought the idea that we don't have adults present was more of a safety thing.
Yeah, I think that there's concern from the students because we had a school meeting on Friday morning, and it was almost presented as if it was just an assembly.
Right.
And to that extent, I think that the message is diluted a little bit when it is presented as if students weren't the ones who were organizing what's going to happen and that something was going to happen at all. But I also think that that's not the reality of the event, and so we shouldn't, I don't know. Sorry, I haven't fully collected my thoughts on this.
And I think April 20th kind of has turned into that, right? Into a more institutionalized version. The organization that I work for is part of a big coalition of groups that's leading the effort to get everybody, I mean, not just schools, but, people in their workplace, just, wear orange that day, just whatever, do something to show your support.
The challenge with April 20th is that it's 420.
Yes.
So in terms of presentation, it's challenging to stage a walkout where high schoolers leave school on 420.
Right.
And also in terms of that it's far off, and the planning for that is much more like
nebulous.
Yeah,
But even
at
that
this
one,
point,
I think.
but we're also part of this demonstration is to encourage students to get a group together to attend the rally, the march for our lives on the 24th and or
24th. Yeah, 24th.
Yeah, 4th. I won't be able to attend, unfortunately, like an admitted students day, but there will be a significant group of Highland Park students hopefully going to New York, and part of this protest is to encourage people to do that.
It's really distracting.
I'm sorry.
So, I'd say that like this is supposed to be a sort of stepping stone to, continued advocacy, because I know that one of the people who gave public comment said that, the letter portrayed this as like a problem of students being sad and stuff, and I think that that person's absolutely right that this is a political protest, but I can't speak for the entire student body, or I don't want to, but I am sad, I'm upset, I'm angry, and yes, I'm translating that to political protest, but there also are those emotions from students, and I know everybody feels them, but
we chose this day earlier. We knew it was going to take more planning in a shorter amount of time, but we chose it earlier just because it's more relevant now, and there's still a lot of emotion behind what happened in Parkland, and we just wanted to be part of the national student body in demonstrating, and so we hope that's our objective in choosing this day.
Right. And I think there's something to be said. There was a lot of conversation when all these different dates were thrown out and different organizations were, mobilizing around the different dates of like, why not just one day? Well, because that's what happens all the time, right? We have this conversation for a week and then it disappears and nobody thinks about it anymore. So I kind of like the fact that this time that there are multiple days of action that are already kind of conceived and that people are coalescing around, so that we know, next month, we're still going to be talking about this. We're still going to be putting pressure on legislators. And, I would like us to talk as a board, about, possible things, we may want to do for that April 20th date. I understand the student concern with organizing around 420. But I think I would like to see us do something with our federal legislators and see how we can get Menendez or Frank Pallone in. I've thought multiple times, I want them here to have to sit through a drill like you guys have to sit. Make it real for them. Come on in and we'll have the drill while you're here. I think that would be tremendously eye-opening for a legislator. This is not a hypothetical. This is what we have to put our students through. How many times a year do we have to do those drills?
Twice a
month.
Yeah.
10 times a year, because one of those. I'm sorry, drills have to happen twice a month. One of them is a lockdown, so there's 10 a year.
They should see with their own eyes, sit and experience what that's like. So, I don't know. That's one idea I had.
So again, with Wednesday, I may have missed it. Where is it going to be?
So we'll be, students will be leaving class at 10 a.m. And going out to the turf. So we'll be on the football field.
Okay. I recommend though, so that you guys can do your thing, that the board meet me in the front lobby of the high school at 9:45. That way we're not, this is your march.
I don't care when you guys show up or where. That doesn't matter at all to us.
But I think,
the students are literally just getting up and going right outside, because it is during the middle of the class, and so it's hard for us to.
Meet in one place.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Right. Okay, and one other thing I thought that I'd just like to touch on briefly is, actually it's Scott's national organization, AASA, is working together with a coalition of 50 different groups, and they've denoted this as Public Schools Week. So clearly this has not become, a household event or anything, but I would certainly like us to do our part to start to promote that. And as far as I know, this is kind of the first year that they've really done this push. There's been, for the last several years a significant school choice week push, and that's funded by multi-million-dollar foundations, including the one founded by our education secretary. So I'm really glad to see that a group of organizations have come together to kind of push back on that narrative. Part of the pushback that they're doing is trying to get federal legislators to the floor this week to say nice things about about public schools and about public education. And I kind of wish I had heard about this earlier than I did, because I think it would have been a really nice opportunity to put together a resolution that we could have sent to our federal legislators, that we could have shared with other boards around the state and around the country. So I'm hoping that this is something that is continued year after year, so we can kind of start the same kind of campaign that's been launched on behalf of school choice, to have that same kind of momentum behind a week for celebrating public schools, because as we've seen tonight, public schools absolutely have their challenges, but I think if we all work together, we can work through a lot of those challenges. So anyway, this week is Public Schools Week, and I'm hoping that for next year we'll have a little bit more advance notice, and we can do a little bit more around that with our federal legislators. So does anybody have anything that they would like to discuss for old business? New? We have nothing on the agenda for old or new business, so if anybody has anything they want to add, here's your spot.
In new business, I'd like to add that the middle school had their chili cook-off on Saturday.
They did. It was so much fun.
The amount being donated from that cook-off is $1,006.50.
Wow. And you better make sure that $6.50 makes it over there, Russell. Middle school.
How much do they make?
$1,006.50.
I love that $6.50.
Middle and high school.
I think it's just the middle school.
I'm sure
I'm almost positive.
Middle school music department?
Yeah.
Yay. And Mr. Presti, wait, were you there? You weren't there. No, I'm just kidding. So Mr. Coleman was there. No. I've seen it's because I see Mr. Presti out at so many events, I got myself confused. But Ms. Chambers was there, and Mr. Coleman was there, and some of the students performed, and it was really nice, and it was lovely. It was a lovely event. So thank you to everybody who helped plan it, and to the staff who came out. All right. Anybody else? Nothing? Public comment? You good?
I have a question, actually. So did we talk at all about how Irving and Bartle are going to be included in the walkout? Because I know that parents on social media were talking about that, and I didn't hear anything about that.
They will not be included in March 14th, but they will be in April 20th.
Okay.
We're going to be planning, the leadership team work with the faculty to come up with some plans. Ms. McNally's already come up with a couple of ideas. Maybe have the kids, I think it was something like what you suggested. Kids would hold hands and around the school as
And there's been like
lock of love.
Part of the coalition that's planning events around the 20th, like Defending the Early Years, has put together some ideas of how schools and teachers can have these conversations with elementary level students. There was actually an article in the Wall Street Journal today about PS 321 in Brooklyn and what they're doing with their elementary age students. So there's kind of more conversations happening around that, and how best to approach this with our little people.
Okay.
So.
That was 321. That's where my
Yes, 321.
my
Yes,
grandkids
Park
are
Slope.
there.
Oh yeah. Represent.
My grandkids are in that school.
Yeah.
The children's school.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, there was an article about them today in the Wall Street Journal.
I gotta look.
Yeah.
Okay. If you guys don't have any public comment, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.